Welcome to Your Mental Health Matters. This is our Season 3, Episode 4. Today we're going to be talking about 3 different sections. Our first section is going to be the importance of connection and building relationships. And then we're going to go into some other segments later on. This is what we'll focus on now. Let's meet the team. I'm Melanie Fraser, Supervisor of Mental Health for Fort McMurray Public School Division.
My name's Erin Martins-Walsh. I am the counseling consultant with Fort McMurray Catholic Schools.
And I'm Joni Stride. I'm the counselor at Franks Bragan School at the Fort McMurray Public Division.
Wonderful. So we're going to get right into just talking about what relationships look like with regards to school and what it can look like in different areas with elementary and secondary. And Erin is going to start us off with that piece.
Yeah, so I guess it's this idea of we want to really highlight the importance of a relationship, a foundation with your child that begins really in the early years, right? As they're an infant, they're developing as well as your relationship evolves and changes as time goes on. And so if we're looking at the earlier years, right, like 0 to 6, but then into changes once they get into elementary school.
It does, yeah.
Once again, right? And so having that foundation there. And what I've found, and I think what typically happens, right, is that at the early age, the child relies on their caregiver for so much,
Yes.
right? That as the caregiver, they are looking after all of their various needs. They need to be fed. They need to be bathed. They need help with getting dressed. They need,
everything.
The list goes on and on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so there's so many natural opportunities, I guess, at those younger ages to be connecting with your child,
Yeah,
right?
so true.
And developing that relationship and having those conversations. And so it's just interesting, I guess, how it evolves, right?
Yep. And then, like, through that development, they acquire skills throughout that time. So you're constantly, it's like a little dance, like, oh, are you able to do this? Oh, we need a little bit of help.
Yeah.
So it's like that little dance of, like, giving them that independence piece,
Yeah.
but then also supporting them where they're, like, need that
Yeah.
support.
And at that age, I feel like a big key part of it is being responsive to their needs, right?
Yes.
And having that trust, and you're sort of like laying again the foundation in your relationship for trust, right? I can trust that my parent, if I need something, if I need to be fed, if I need help with my homework, I can reach out to my caregiver for that assistance. And as parents, then we're responsive to their needs, right? And we meet their needs, and bit by bit, the child learns to trust, and they can turn to their caregiver for all of those different needs that come up, right?
And I think it gets challenging when there's multiple kids, though. I think that's good to notice, to know, because I have twins and I have 5 kids.
Yeah.
It gets very challenging to meet all their needs when you have multiples and they're very young and they all want you at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think the attachment piece and that connection piece can be difficult when you have a lot of kids in the home, and especially if they're close in age, where you can't have the older kids kind of help support with some of that, because they have a lot of needs as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be perfect. Though,
It
right?
doesn't have to be perfect.
And that's the part with, responding to their needs. I
That's
mean,
right.
it might be that, okay, I'll help you, with your homework, but it's going to be in 20 minutes from now once I'm finished making supper,
That's
right?
right. Or bathing your daughter or
bathing
whatever.
the younger
Yeah.
child or whatever the needs may be. But as long as you are
Yeah.
getting to it, it may
Yes.
not be as timely as what they would like.
Right.
And that can create some chaos, but you're still responding to their
That's
needs, right? So,
Which is so important. That's the overarching thing. We want to respond to their needs, and we want them to develop that trust, and they know that they can count on you. And it happens in the secondary as well, in the older years.
Yes.
it just
right?
looks different, right? It
Yes.
changes.
Yeah. So as the child develops and into their teen years, you're going to notice some of that independence, and they'll push back a little bit.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I've noticed, like working in the high school, is there is that level of independence, like striving to figure out who they are as an individual, and they're spending more time with friends, but they still need your advice. I mean, always kind of being that ship, that's like I'm the guidance ship of, like, this is what you come to if you're struggling with something that's really important. Like, I'm thinking about, like, some life decisions and some peer interactions and things that they might have questions about, that they'll come to you.
And you want them to.
Yeah.
And because if you develop it in the early years, that trust and that reciprocation, they will hopefully come to in the later years. They may not always. Sometimes they go to their peers, but yeah, it's
Mhm.
It's
a part
knowing
of
that
it.
it's there, I guess,
Yes.
is key, right? That
Yeah.
it's accessible if they need their parent, right?
Yeah.
And that you're
Yeah.
responsive to.
And it's never going to be on your time. It's going to be on their time.
Yeah.
Right? And if it's 10 o'clock at night and you're exhausted and your child comes up to you and wants to talk to you, you sit there, you keep your eyes wide open and you listen, because that may
You
be the
try to be
only
there.
time, even though on the inside you're like, oh, good Lord, I'm so
Yeah.
tired. It's
Yeah.
what you have to do,
But
right?
it's on their,
It's
on their
on
terms.
their terms
that
when
they'll
they-
come to you.
Yes. Yeah.
And the connecting piece just looks different, right? And you don't
Yeah.
have maybe like the quantity or the amount that you once did when your child is young,
That's a good
right?
point.
Because
Yeah.
you know, they're at school for a good portion of the day. They may have like extracurriculars. They may have friends that they're
Mhm.
going to see. And so
Yeah.
your time is more limited. And I
Yeah.
think that that's even an adjustment as a parent, right?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
you just have less time with your child, but it's finding ways to make it that quality time,
Yes,
right?
yeah. Yeah, and make it more meaningful and have,
Intentional
just
in what you're
different
doing.
little things that's special. This is our time. We're going
Mhm.
to go do this or whatever. Like ask them, like, what would
Yeah.
you like to do with me?
Yeah.
And we'll have some, a movie night or just go out for like, coffee or something,
Yeah.
whatever the child wants to do.
Their
Play a video
interests,
game.
right?
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, do something that they like,
Yeah.
right? And as a parent, I could speak on being on the other end where all my kids are older. You grieve that time you used to be able
Yeah.
to have with them. You grieve it because they don't
Yeah.
need it anymore. They need it, but they don't show you the same way.
Mhm.
And it's hard because
Yeah.
if you want to be doing more and being their everything, that's just not the case when they get older and they have that
Yeah.
autonomy. So
Yeah.
what can parents do? Parents have more control than you think you do. You really do. In those behaviors and those relationships with kids escalating, with kids having communication to you that there is something going on in their life and they may not be able to talk to you about it, or they're feeling it's coming out at school more or it's coming out at home more, if there's not that trust there, or you're wondering, what do I do as a parent to deal with a child who is so upset all the time and screaming at school, but then they come home and they shut down and they're just in their bedroom, right?
Mhm.
Parents do have more control over that. So what Joni and Aaron are talking about is that connection, which is the foundation for everything else after, including their well-being and mental health.
Mhm.
So you have all of that connection and care, which will help you be able to deal with some of these bigger issues, whether it be at school, whether it be behaviors, dysregulation. You do have more of an ability to be able to control that. This looks different for everyone. It could be oppositional defiant disorder. A child has that diagnosis, anxiety. It may be something that you're seeing where there's an attachment. And that's a little bit trickier because attachment usually means they didn't have that safe connection. It doesn't mean mom and dad hasn't tried, but it's difficult to meet all their needs sometimes, and 30% of the time.
Yes, the circle of security says 30% of the
Only
time.
30% of the
get
time.
It right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if it's something more than just your behavior connections with your child, you may have to consider if there is something else going on about seeing your doctor just to see about the medication piece, if it's impeding everyday functioning. Right, and I think that's the bigger piece is you're not going to be introducing that unless you need to, but if it's impeding functioning, we do that. But parents have control to build that connection so later on, those pieces just kind of fall in place.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And all this, I think we're saying all of this to hopefully empower parents, right? To say, like, sometimes it can feel hopeless and helpless if your kid is struggling,
Mhm.
but I think it's going back and examining that piece,
Yeah.
right? And it could be that that's intact and everything as well, and there's still,
Having some
bigger
concerns.
issues, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's important to go back and reflect on that.
That
and to
foundational
consider,
piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, that connection, because and it can be something, and that's within your circle of control, right?
Yeah.
Your periphery of
Yeah.
control, and so you as a parent, I guess, have the capacity to be able to look at it and say,
Yeah.
how can we connect, right? And
Right.
and again,
Mhm.
it's small things I think that we're
Yeah.
hoping to do throughout the day. That it doesn't have to be lavish, big date
Yeah.
nights or
Yeah.
this and that if you're feeling stretched,
Yeah.
right? It's connecting over breakfast or
Mhm.
it's come cook a meal
Just that
with
little
me
daily
or
check-in and
Yeah.
having that
Yeah.
little the mini time that
Yeah.
you can kind of just say,
Yeah.
hey,
It makes
how's
a world of
going?
difference,
Yeah.
and it's so simple. And we're doing this and we're talking to you about this because we understand it's the simple things that are going to make a difference in a child's life. Because why?
Because your mental health
Your
matters.
mental health matters.